Gotcha. 30 seconds.
You and I got the bottle of water too.
I'm good.
And text messages and emails, everybody wants to know what time does it go on the live stream? But it's so many times these events turn into. That's the way it goes.
Right.
Good evening. Outside of the sliding glass doors, the baseball team at Columbus State University is practicing. And here at the Cunningham Center, we're here for a forum on the Muscogee County Sheriff's race. Good evening, I'm Richard Hyatt. And you might have me confused with that fellow who for 44 years was an editor, columnist, and reporter at the Ledger-Inquirer. Actually, I'm Richard Hyatt, the editorial director of All on Georgia Muscogee. You can find me reporting the news every day at www.muscogeeallongeorgia.com, our city's newest source for news. My address changed less than a month ago, and market manager Josh McCoon and I appreciate the overwhelming support you've shown our site. More than 320,000 people have visited our address since September 29th, making us the most successful startup franchise in the All on Georgia statewide network. One more time, that's www.muscogee.allongeorgia.com, just in case you missed it. But enough of the commercial announcements. We're here tonight with 4 experienced candidates seeking the office of sheriff. And we're proud to sponsor this forum because the sheriff's office is one of the most important positions in our city. This forum is being live streamed on our website, and we'll be back here tomorrow night in the same room at the same time for a forum on the tax freeze issue. But the office of sheriff is a vital position. It was established in the original act that established Muscogee County, and this was at a time Native Americans could be seen fishing across the Chattahoochee River in Alabama. Our first elected sheriff was James C. Holland. He took office in 1828. He was our primary peacekeeper, which was not an easy task in a frontier town like Muscogee was at that time. He also provided security in the courtrooms and made sure the prisoners were locked up securely, jobs our sheriffs still perform. For many years, we had one sheriff and one deputy. That slowly changed, and today the Muscogee County Sheriff's Department is a full-scale law enforcement agency that is governed by strict professional standards. Donald Trump had trouble with this date, and I hope I get it right, but Election Day is November 8th. Thousands of our neighbors have already voted, but the final decision comes next month. All in Georgia, Muscogee hopes that during the coming hour, you will get better acquainted with these four public servants who want to be your sheriff. In alphabetical order, these candidates are write-in candidate Pam Brown. She was a member of the Sheriff's Department for 24 years. She served as a corrections officer and a member of the Metro Narcotics Task Force. John Darr, an independent, is our incumbent. He's a 28-year veteran of the department and is seeking his third four-year term as sheriff. Republican Mark LaJoy served in the military for 36 years, and on his resume, he has 13 years of experience as a law enforcement officer. Democrat Donna Tompkins. She retired as a captain this year after 31 years in uniform, serving in a variety of administrative roles in the Sheriff's Department. We're about to hear from those candidates, but I want to remind you this is not a presidential debate, so behave yourself. Be respectful and be civil. I'm making that message primarily for our audience tomorrow night, which promises to be pretty hot and heavy. But now let's get down to business. Tonight, we have a pretty standard format. We have four candidates. They will make an opening statement and have closing remarks at the end. They've been each allotted 5 minutes. In between those remarks, I'll be asking 4 questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer those questions. And I stress that those questions haven't been shared with any of the candidates. In fact, I didn't finish until about 4 o'clock. So it's time to get down to the order of business. For the opening remarks, we're going to go in alphabetical order. And for the closers, we'll reverse that order at the end for the closing statements. So our first speaker in the Sheriff's Forum is Pam Brown. Pam, do you want to come up here or do you want to speak from your seat? Either way.
I can speak. First of all, I would like to thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Pam Brown, and I've been here in Columbus since 1985. I moved to Columbus at the time I was a single parent, and after being here for approximately 3 years, I thought Columbus and Fort Benning was a great area to raise my child. I got hired at Muscogee County Sheriff's Office in 1987 as a correctional officer. I was promoted in 1990 to a deputy, and at that time, about 3 years I worked in the jail, and then I went to patrol. And when I arrived at the sheriff's office and patrolled, I worked 2 years undercover throughout the state of Georgia, Albany, Harris County, Waycross, Baxley, Georgia, and several other counties, working strictly undercover. After about 2 years working undercover, I got tired of that, and I went back to patrol full time, and I became a field training officer. Then I was asked to go to Metro Narcotics Task Force again as an agent. I went to Metro Narcotics Task Force for 2 years. I got promoted to sergeant. I came back into the sheriff's office, and I was administration sergeant in the front office for 2 years. 2 years being in the front office, I was then transferred to the investigative unit of the sheriff's office. In the sheriff's office, the investigative unit at that time consisted of 6 investigators, and we also had a fugitive unit that was connected to that unit with 6 members. I ran that unit, and we made the biggest drug bust in the state of Georgia. When I come out of that unit, I made lieutenant, and I went back to patrol, and I was evening shift commander, where I was the one on call at night for the investigators as well as patrol. When John Darr came into office, I was moved to another lieutenant slot, working directly for a major that was over the Operations Bureau. The Operations Bureau consisted of the court detail and patrol services. I picked up duties that a captain should have been doing. When I left that unit to go to the jail, that major had to get 4 lieutenants to do the job that 1 lieutenant was doing. I went to the jail. I decided to retire. When I retired, I went on to work for Harris County Prison as a counselor for 2 years. I'm presently working at St. Francis in the security division. Throughout the sheriff's office, I have had several trainings, such as I was on the board for the Georgia Civil Process Association. I've had extensive training in emergency response to domestic biological incidents, domestic violence training, courtroom security, various training for incident command, sex offenders training. I also was an equal opportunity counselor. I've had several other trainings, homicide investigation, you name it. I've had all the training there is to have within the sheriff's office because I worked all areas. I've also had training for working on a budget because as lieutenant working for major, I helped with the operations side of the budget. I was the PTA president for Lonnie Jackson Academy. I helped with Rockchild Middle School Booster Club. I did holiday family assistance programs, and I was the coordinator for the Partners in Education for the Sheriff's Office and got the Sheriff Department the gold medal for being involved in Partners in Education. And I'm single. I have 1 child and 2 grandkids, one at Columbus High and one at St. Luke. And I'm here to try to make Columbus a better community, and I plan to be here, and I want my grandkids to grow up in a safe community, and I hope you consider me for sheriff.
And I'm not sure I made it clear, Pam Brown is a write-in candidate. You will not find her name on the ballot. She's a write-in. Our next speaker is the Sheriff of Muscogee County, John Darr.
Well, good evening, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out. Just like Ms. Brown said, I want to thank All on Georgia Muscogee for hosting this forum, and I also think that is an interesting dynamic part of it is this live streaming, so I think that adds an interesting twist to this forum. A little bit about myself. My name is John Darr. I've got 28 years of experience in law enforcement, all with the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office, and I always take time to say I've had nearly 8 years the honor and privilege of serving as sheriff of Muscogee County, and I really do mean that. I seriously believe that it's a privilege when you're an elected official in any capacity, but much less when you're talking about the office of sheriff. In those 28 years, I have done a number of different things, just like Ms. Brown and Ms. Tompkins. We've worked in a number of different areas within the Sheriff's Office. I started off, like most everybody, with the Sheriff's Office at the county jail as a jailer, worked my way into a deputy position and did field operations or patrol, as we probably called it back then, for a number of years. Went into the fugitive unit for a short period of time, and then a very short time worked in investigations. Then that time I became a supervisor down at the county jail, and after a few years as a sergeant at the county jail, I decided that I wanted to run for sheriff of Muscogee County in 2008, and was fortunate enough to be elected in 2009. I always tell people my dad's military. I come from a military family. I was born out here in Fort Benning. Moved through a couple of different places, but not very many. It was Fort Polk, Louisiana, and in New York. Been back here since I was 12 years old. Went to school here. You know, I'm married. My wife's been here in her entire life. I have 4 kids and 3 grandkids. And just like everybody, you know, the welfare and the safety of Muscogee County is paramount to me, not only because of what I do, but just for the family and for the individuals such as yourself here in this room and throughout the community and those who's watching this. We take it all very serious, and you're right. There's a lot of people up here with a lot of experience. And I think that there's going to be a decision for a lot of these individuals in the community to make who they want to be as sheriff. I always tell people, you know, when I ran in 2008, there was a number of things that I wanted to bring to the sheriff's office. Make better use of social media and technology, which we have. We got a couple of sites that it makes it a little bit better for individuals to go to the site, find out who's in the county jail and what they're charged with. Gives people an opportunity to submit tips to, you know, individuals that we have warrants on. I wanted to have a sheriff's office that is really involved in, not only sheriff's office, but to be a sheriff that's really actively involved in the community. And I think I know a lot of individuals here in this room knows, and if you see and follow us, not only on social media, but even in the media, we're actively involved in a number of things out here in the community, from the autism to working with at-risk youths with Turnaround Columbus. We did some things with Ms. Katonga Wright, who's a local attorney for Law Day for Boys and Law Girls, and there's a number of other things. You know, wanted to do my part, and you know, working with other law enforcement agencies, be it the Columbus Police Department, the Marshal's Office, U.S. Marshal's Office, and the DEA here locally, to make this the safest community and foster those relationships to make this a better and safer community. You know, at the end of the day, I guess, is, you know, you have a tough choice, you know, and at the end of the day, I think when you start looking at the candidates, I think and I hope that, you know, you kind of realize that the experience that I've brought or that I bring to this office and the things that we've accomplished since I've been in office, I think that you'll be pleased. And then like I always tell everybody, I ask for your prayers and your support and your vote during early voting. Everybody knows it's going on right now and on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Our next speaker is Republican Mark LaJoy.
Sorry. I want to thank, again, Richard and Josh McCoon and all on Georgia for putting this on tonight. It's very important that you understand the candidates and what they represent. Richard basically covered a little bit about my background. I'm just going to expand a little bit about that. I've got 36 years in the military, and I'm still serving with the Alabama National Guard. I'm a senior non-commissioned officer there, and I serve proudly for that 37 years. I've served in all aspects in the military. I'm on operations, sitting in Operations Sergeant Major slot right now, which is extremely important. I make a lot of decisions for a lot of people, and I don't take that lightly. I've managed budgets in excess of $10.5 million in equipment and personnel in excess of 250 at any given time. I served 2 combat tours both in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm very proud of those tours. I was there in 2002 at the beginning of the war. A lot of changes were made during that time. I served in Columbus Police Department for 13 years, as was alluded to earlier, but I have much more experience than that. I've been in the reserves. I was a Russell County deputy for about 4 years there before I came here to Columbus, which was extremely important. That kind of laid the foundation for me. But when I was about 12 or 13, it was around 13 years old, I was just a lad. I started out as a reserve in search and rescue. So my path was kind of set as to who I was and what I was going to be in the future. Tried several times to get out of the military to start a law enforcement career. Just didn't have that opportunity until I got here till Columbus in 1989. Once I got here in 1989, I got out of the military in 92 in an early out discharge and immediately went into the Columbus Police Department. And I served in all facets of Columbus Police Department. I was a police officer on South Columbus on the south side. I was a SWAT operator. I was an FBI trained bomb technician, which I was very proud of. And secondly, I was also a youth substance abuse counselor for a program called Conditional Discharge, which is extremely important. It had a huge impact on our court system and the recidivism rate, and cutting that recidivism rate in the court system and the return rate to jail, obviously. I personally supervised, tasked to organize 150 special operations soldiers in the rescue relief effort of Task Force Katrina. I was there in the initial stage over there. 5,500 people were rescued by my task force and that team. I task organized the first provincial police force in Afghanistan in 2002. Very significant. Never been a police force ever in that country in its history. I was able to do that, equip personnel, task organize it, and do all those things. I have a master's, bachelor's, and associate degree in criminal justice through Troy State University. Over 6,000 hours of military and police training related. I'm a national firearms instructor and range safety NCO. I'm the only candidate that has a 12-point comprehensive plan. And in that 12-point comprehensive plan, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the overall operating cost of the sheriff's office itself. We're going to stay within the approved budget. We're going to conduct annual audits, which I welcome, because I want to know where all that money's going. I want to be able to track that money, so we're going to do that annually. We're going to publish a quarterly report card, which is extremely important. That report card is going to show my achievements as your sheriff in office. Nobody's doing that. Sheriff Dar didn't do it. I'm going to make sure that it's done, just in the interest of transparency. We're going to improve on relationships with law enforcement. The sheriff's office right now, the strained relationships between Columbus Police Department and other agencies, we're going to reestablish those relationships. And more importantly, we're going to improve the relationship with the city council. I'm going to make sure that I reach across the aisle and that I improve those relationships and that we have a dialogue consistently with them. So I'd like to, tonight hopefully we can cover some very important points up, but you're about to make a very important decision for a very important office here, and I want to thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, our final speaker in this portion is Donna Tompkins.
Good evening, everyone. Again, thank you to All on Georgia for hosting this forum. I said earlier that I think the Thaw the Freeze or the Keep the Freeze thing has taken a lot of the steam locally, and the sheriff's race has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat. So that's good, though. We're here, and we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the online streaming. For some of you that know me, then you've heard all of this before, but I will, for the benefit of those that do not, go over a little bit of my history and experience. I started with the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office as a civilian employee. I worked my way into the jail as a correctional officer. I went to mandate. I was a deputy on the street. I was promoted to the rank of sergeant. I was a field operations sergeant. I was also an administrative sergeant during my time. I was promoted again to lieutenant. I was in charge of internal affairs. Then I was reassigned to the Muscogee County Jail, where I was a jail squad commander. Additionally, I had the duties of PREA investigation, which is Prison Rape Elimination Act, and everything that had to do with the federal standards regarding a jail facility and that federal law. From there, I was promoted again to the rank of captain, and I was in charge of human resources and administration. So with 31 years, I've been there and done that and got all the T-shirts. Additionally, I do have a master's degree in public administration. I am a Georgia Law Enforcement Command College graduate, and the reason that's important is because the Georgia Law Enforcement Command College prepares you to take executive level leadership positions. You have to understand and pass courses on leadership, strategic planning, human resources, law, everything that makes a good top official who's able to see into the future and work towards those goals. So I'm very proud of that accomplishment. Additionally, I do have a National Human Resource Administration certification, so I've been married for 29 years to the same man, and I have 2 grown children. And the reason that I stood up to run for this office after 31 years, and no one else has discussed, was while we have done some good things in the community, we certainly have some things that are negative. There is currently still pending litigation between the Sheriff's Office and the City of Columbus. Even in this morning's paper, there was $33,400 that was approved by your council to pay additional legal fees. That total is somewhere around $1.8 million to date. And this city is sitting on a 60-day reserve. So for me, I understand not only do we need to restore integrity, credibility, good common sense, we need to build bridges with your other elected officials. We've got to balance the budget, and that's huge. I have heard that we don't have a platform. My platform is just that. It's time to restore integrity, credibility. We should be the committed community partner that the people of this county need us to be. And we sometimes seem to forget that when you give us your vote, we're there to serve you. And I just want to encourage you to check out myself on Facebook or DonnaTompkins.com, because I believe this election is very critical to the people that live in Muscogee County. You need a sheriff that's working for you, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. We'll move into the next segment now, where it's questions and answers. And as I mentioned earlier, these are questions that none of the candidates have seen or heard until I read them. So it's, I think we'll start off with kind of a oldie but goodie. This question was retrieved from mothballs, I guess, because it's hardly a new subject. But in 1970, voters decided to consolidate the governments of Muscogee County and Columbus. Left undone 44 years ago, and still out there, was a merger of the Sheriff's Department and the Marshal's Office. We're going to go down the line with this question, but as sheriff, would you support a movement that would bring those two agencies together? And if not, why do you think it should stay status quo? And we'll start with Donna Tompkins.
Okay. Believe it or not, that's a question that we get asked a lot in all of these forums. Let me just say this about the Marshal's Office. They have approximately a $1.2 million budget, and the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office has a $27.5 million budget. So honestly, it's a small part. The people of Muscogee County voted on this issue. I'm not sure what the year was, but it was put on the ballot, and the people of Muscogee County decided to keep the Marshal's Office. As your sheriff, it's my duty to work with other law enforcement officials. If the people of Muscogee County want to maintain a Marshal's Office, then that should be left to the voters of this county. If the people decided that they did not want it, then the sheriff could certainly assume all the duties assigned to the Marshal's Office. But as your sheriff, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to comment other than to say leave that to the people, and if the people decide they do not want it, then we will assume those duties.
Mark, do you want to take a shot at it?
Great question. It came back up in 2012 also, so it keeps coming around year after every 4 years. It keeps coming around. Again, this is a age-old question of combining the two agencies together. Obviously, it's got to be voted on by the public. The public have to vote it on to see if there's a referendum. Maybe this is a date and time that we can look at that again. Maybe combining the two offices together again. Obviously, we have huge budget issues in the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office. all around city government right now. So I think it's an age-old question, but it may be something that the public needs to look at again. I will support anything that the public wants to do at that point. If they feel like they want to combine the two agencies together, we'll do that, and we'll have a very smooth transition doing it. But I think that's a question that's left up to the voters, and we're going to do that.
John?
Is it on?
You're good.
It was a delay. I think you're going to hear that from all four of us. I'd be surprised if you didn't. I mean, the citizens have voted on it, I think, twice now to have that office in place, and I am with what the voters want. If they want to keep that office in place, and that's what seems to be what they seem to want, then that's fine. I mean, the marshal's office is, for people who don't know, is very specific somewhat in what they do. They're very specific in who they cater to, which is a number of individuals that have rental property and serving dispossessory warrants and evictions. So regardless of whatever happened with the marshal's office, anybody could assume that those duties if it came under the sheriff's office. But at the end of the day, the voters have decided they want that office. They like the services that I think are being provided by that marshal's office. And it's till the citizens in Muscogee County say otherwise, we're going to have that. But anything would be possible on that if it came under the sheriff's office.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with what was said about, for as the citizens want that office, that's what we would have to abide by, what the citizens want. Me personally, I think the Marshal's Department should be merged with the Sheriff's Office. Before I left the Sheriff's Office, I know the Sheriff's Office picked up a lot more duties that the Marshal Department is supposed to be doing for its evictions. I do know for a fact that there are several rental properties that are not happy with the Marshal's Department. I also think the Marshal Department should not have an 8-to-5 job. I think the Marshal Department should be out here on the streets helping Muscogee County Sheriff's deputies and Columbus Police Department deter crime in Muscogee County.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, the Sheriff's Department is responsible for the security of our public buildings, specifically the Government Center and the City Services Center. Since 9/11, Homeland Security has been something that we all learned to live with. So, but are we doing enough in our public buildings? Are they secure enough? And in your view, what should we do so our citizens will feel safer when they visit their government buildings? And we'll start with Mark.
That's a great question, Richard. As you know, I was in the Columbus Emergency Management Reaction Team as being a bomb technician. My job was physical security, so we actually went around and did what we call risk assessments. In those risk assessments, we went and seen all the vulnerabilities. We did some here at Columbus State University. We did some down at Total Systems and Aflac campuses. And what we did is we revealed a lot of things in security issues that happen along those campuses. And so I think it's extremely important that we strengthen those public buildings. As you well know, we have a threat of terrorism around the world. Being an intelligence person like I am, I know the real intelligence and what's going on. And to pick a community like Columbus, this can happen anywhere. So my effort as a sheriff would be to strengthen our building and our public buildings that we look at. I know that we took down the Citizen Service Center. You've got one deputy in there right now. There's no way to search bags or any of that thing. You've got one deputy that does that. He's kind of overwhelmed. That's an accident waiting to happen. We need to bring the security back in there. We need to bring that machine back in there at the very entrance of it. So.
Okay. Sheriff Tarr.
Everyone up here on this podium knows who Major Mike Massey is. Major Mike Massey is the one that is entrusted by the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office, me, for the security of all the government buildings. And Major Massey and I would always tell you, there's always what we feel like is a need for more security, not less. But everybody's got to realize in this room, and I think you do, there's a cost fixed to that anytime you increase that security. At the Citizen Service Center, we did have the screening process in. And then, of course, then, you had a lot of people in the community complain about that because of the screening coming in. And if you ever look at that Citizen Service building, it was really designed where the employees don't have to have a concern because doors if they're locked and there's barriers between them and the public. So that was taken in consideration when we built that building. Now, of course, when we talk about the government center, we do have the screening process because that's the courthouse. You got to have screening when you hold court, where you have court. And of course, I'm sure a number of you have come into the government center and you probably complained about how stringent the security is when you're coming into that building. But with all that said, like I said at the start, we always wish we could have potentially more security, but there's a cost of fix to that. And we do right now. We believe, and we do, and constantly we're looking at opportunities all the time for threat assessments in all the buildings that we have and that we're entrusted with and taking care of. And I think we do a good job with that. Thank you.
Ma'am?
I think, like Sheriff John Dar said, the cost. Right now, the Sheriff Dar is in the predicament he's in because of money, apparently. There's not the funds for additional security, additional deputies, or whatever it may take to have security for those buildings. For the Citizen Service Center, I noticed the walk-through detector has been taken out. Apparently, there's no money to buy another one. I think Homeland Security should kick in and assist with the security throughout this city. Now, I don't know what they do on a day-to-day basis. When Homeland Security first started, I was over that unit. That's how I got to know Mark LaJoy as the bomb tech. I don't know what their daily duties are, but if there's not money to buy a screening system for the Citizen Service Center, why isn't Homeland Security doing their duty for its helping with security throughout the city?
What was the question exactly?
Well,
As the sheriff,
is
Homeland Security? Yeah, or do we have enough security?
Adequate?
No.
And if
Okay,
it's not, what would you do?
I got you, okay. As others have said, there is never enough security. We all know that we cannot protect everyone all the time. That's fact. I don't care what security system you have in place. We are all doing what we can do, but there is a cost, and that is one of those things. We're spending $100,000 protecting the Citizen Service Center, and one of my things as sheriff would be to look at, could we use technology instead of actual manpower to reduce some of those costs? So that's one thing I would look at as your sheriff. But there's never a way to absolutely say that you're safe anywhere, but I think we do a good job, and I happen to agree with the sheriff on this about Major Mike Massey has done an excellent job and worked with the Georgia Sheriff's Association and Homeland Security and those agencies to do what we can do with the limited resources that we have.
I'm sure each of the four candidates knew we'd get around the money eventually. And in recent years, the Sheriff's Department has reported more than $12 million in budgetary overruns. It's been discussed, there's a lawsuit now pending. If you are elected sheriff, what changes would you implement that would allow you to operate a department that stays within its budget? And we'll start with Sheriff Dar.
Well, I guess that would be a good way for me to start us off. Really, I think for those here in the auditorium tonight and those who are watching out there live streaming this, and I always try to tell people this when I get an opportunity to talk. There's a huge difference between overspending and being underfunded, and that's the truth. We have implemented a number of things since I've been sheriff that have saved money. We got $100,000 from a grant to put propane converter things in our vehicles. Not only did we get that for free, that it saved thousands of dollars on fuel costs, and the city was getting tax money back from the federal government for that. we've reallocated some of our personnel, so we're not spending as much money on what you would call the gap time issue. But at the end of the day, when you start looking, if you ever get an opportunity to look through the sheriff's office budget, there's some shortcomings that regardless if you're not funded, you're not going to be able to overcome. And one of those is what everybody in this room is dealing with, and what we're talking about throughout this country right now, is the rising cost of medical. Not only the medical care, but the pharmaceutical needs of the inmates. That is two of the biggest obstacles that you're going to have to deal with as sheriff. And if I stay in it, I'm going to have to continue to deal with that obstacle. And if anybody else here is getting elected, you're going to have to deal with that obstacle. And one of the problems we're having is we're not being funded on those line items for inmate medical services and pharmaceutical costs. The only way you're going to be able to bring those down is what? Less inmates inside the county jail. That's what's going to drive the budget, or a large portion of the sheriff's office budget is the county jail. So everything we do in the sheriff's office since I've been sheriff is geared toward lowering the cost of the county jail the best we can.
Okay, Donna?
The sheriff is right about money, but 70% of the overages were not medical. So one of the things that I want to do as your sheriff is to monitor those contracts. We spend $4.2 million in medical contracts of one sort or another, both inmate health care and inmate mental health care. So one of the things that I want to do is make sure that we are getting what we're paying for from those contractors and keeping them, having meetings with them as we are required to do, and having them give us an update on inmates. We all know that sometimes we get inmates into our facility that are very sick, and perhaps there would be ways to get those inmates out or put them on ankle monitor systems, things like that that would help to drive down those costs. Medication costs. You know, it's an amazing thing when you put things out for contract and you make people bid for them, then they're going to give you a good cost. And so that's one of the things that I would do to work on those budget overruns. And that's about all I got time to talk about.
Well, the first cost-saving idea that I'm going to put into place is not sue the city council. As you well know, that's run up our legal bills in the millions of dollars. So that's not what I'm going to do. I am going to work with the council. I'm not going to go to corner and lawyer up and waste the taxpayers' money. That's one thing I vow not to do, and that's part of my transparency. The second one is that I'm going to bring back the conditional discharge program. It had a huge success rate. It was about 20%. It alleviated the overcrowding in the jail system through the recorder's courts, the state court, and the superior courts for nonviolent offenders. They were out in our program. It is extremely successful. I want to bring that program back with deputies and police officers and monitor that program. So these are huge cost-saving ideas that we can put into place. As you well know, the sheriff's been in, he's talked about the health care costs and everything inside the jail. He automatically starts out his speech that he is in the red every year, that he starts out in the red. Well, these health care costs are going up. But there are ways to look at that, and part of that 12-point comprehensive plan that I have is part of that health care cost. And as when I'm elected, we'll go ahead and make announcements as we do that. But within the first 90 days, we're going to figure out that audit that's going to go into place that I need to have there to find out additional cost savings that we're going to put into place. Thank you.
Pam?
Like any business, when you're over your budget, you have to cut. I can't sit here and say what I'm going to cut because I haven't been in the sheriff's office now for 6 years now. I would have to assess and evaluate every department within that agency for the contracts, the different programs, and some of those things would have to be cut. As far as the mental health and the health issues, I know that the health has went up. I think there are ways that you could eliminate some of that cost on inmates. You have, for instance, inmate that's on dialysis. If he's on dialysis, where is he going? Put him on an ankle monitor and let him out of the county jail because he can't go anywhere. Wherever he goes, he got to have dialysis to live. So there are ways that you could eliminate some of the health problems within the jail. So I would just have to evaluate every area and see where I could cut. to save money and keep within that budget.
All of these things we're talking about on that, in answering that question, deal with the practical aspects of it, healthcare, a early release plan, all of these things. But what we have is a lot of angst between human beings, between officials, between departments. There's conflicts between the sheriff's department and city council and the mayor. So if you're elected, given these conflicts and these hard feelings, what can you do to heal these open wounds? Because before you can put a lot of these practical things into place, you've got to have some of these problems dealt with on a personal level. So what would you do? I'll start with Pam.
Anyone who knows me know I can basically get along with anyone. I'm gonna mind my own business and run the sheriff's office is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna try to fight city council. I'm not gonna worry about what the police department get. I'm not gonna worry about what the marshal department get. You know, I'm gonna worry about the inmates, my employees, and I would just have to work with my budget and do the best I can to stay in good graces with the city council. I will be able to compromise, I believe, with any city council member and agency to keep a good relationship. That's basically what I'm gonna do with my own business.
Donna?
I'm going to be part of the process. I'm going to work for you. You're paying my salary. That means I'm going to be at every budget meeting. When the city manager asks me for a budget, I'm going to give it to him in a timely manner. I'm going to attend those meetings. I'm going to talk to those council members. You know, there's a budget committee made up of council members. I'm going to go before them and talk to them. I'm going to be part of the process because that's what I see. Because the bridges have been burned between the sheriff's office and the rest of the city council and the mayor and the city manager, that's just not happening. And it's not good for the people of Muscogee County, and it's also not good for the employees of the Muscogee County Sheriff's Office. So as their leader, I'm going to be the one to reach across the aisle. I'm going to be the one to come to the table with an open mind, a willingness to listen, and some creative ideas of my own. I'm going to serve you, the people of Muscogee County, by being part of the process. Whatever the process is, I'll be there for you.
Mark?
Well, sir, somebody has to be the big adult in the room, and I'm willing to reach across the aisle and do everything I can to work with the city council. I've already had several short meetings with some council members, and I've told them that I will extend the olive branch at every effort that I can to work with the council. The council are the bill payers here, and they're not the opposition, and we have to be able to work within the budget that we currently have. So I'm definitely going to reach out with the council members. I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to mend those relationships that are there. Not to only mention that with the council, but also law enforcement in the community. We've got to mend those relationships. They're strained right now. And it's extremely important that somebody's the big adult in the room. And I'm going to be that big adult as your sheriff.
John?
I want to start off as I always give my number out to everybody in this community. I put it on Facebook. Anytime I run into somebody, I give my number out. Because I want everybody to have an opportunity to have access to me on anything they have questions about, but especially when it comes to some of these issues that you're hearing today. Don't get fooled by some of this political talk. Do not get confused. I will tell everybody here in this room and everybody who's watching, I didn't lawyer up at the very beginning of this. I tried to work this out with the city council. Well, anybody fool you and says that I didn't get what I wanted and then I just went off and got some attorneys. That did not happen. I tried to work this out with the city. A few years ago, the city came to me, and if you ever remember in that budget process, they wanted us to cut a couple of things. They wanted us to cut that gap time over time by 30%, and they wanted us to cut the part, there's one part when it comes to the training budget. They asked me to cut that overtime and gap time by 30%. They asked me to cut that, like I said, on the training. We didn't cut it 30%, we cut it about 41 to 42%, almost in half. And we cut that training budget by a bunch too. The reason I put that out as an example is I try to be part of the process. I try to be a team player when it comes to that. When they asked me to do that, I didn't just look at them and says, no, we're going to continue to run the sheriff's office like we've been doing for the last few years. Did not do that, people. That's why I said do not be confused when you hear some of this up here. That's why I always give you my number, and if anybody has any questions, please feel free to call me, and a lot of you have done that, and I appreciate that when you do.
Okay, we'll move to the final segment of tonight's forum, and that's closing statements from each of the four candidates. For the openers, we started in alphabetical order, so this time around we'll turn the bottle upside down and go in reverse order. So we'll start with Donna Tompkins.
Again, I want to thank you for hosting us tonight. I hope that people will watch this and make an informed, intelligent decision. I want to leave you with this. I am offering myself for service to you, the people of Muscogee County, and I want you to realize that if we continue to do the exact same thing, we're going to continue to get the same result. And I believe that's the definition of insanity. And the best indicator of future performance is past performance. At this time, we still have pending litigation. That's not been settled. That is not going to go away under the current administration. And I truly believe that the bridges that have been burned, both with city officials and with other law enforcement agencies, they're not going to just automatically be healed. And I really ask for your vote, because I believe that with a change of leadership, we can come together and do what's good for you, the people of Muscogee County. And so, as others have said, I ask for your support, I ask for your prayers, and I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up is Mark LaJoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to make a very important decision here in the next few days on who your new sheriff's going to be. I know Sheriff Darr talks about all of the things that were said and watch what's being said, but the bottom line is I kind of halfway agree with Donna Tompkins. Is the past performance is a good indicator of future performance, which it is. And residents of Muscogee County, the time for change is now. With all the overspending and big controlling contracts, the sheriff's decision to spend taxpayers' money and hard-earned money on frivolous lawsuits, primarily because he cannot come to an agreement on his operating budget, is ridiculous and downright insane. The only one getting rich in this scheme is the legal teams representing the elected officials that are suing. We believe the position of sheriff is a constitutional one with all the honors, powers, and dignity that go along with it. And I don't take that lightly. As your elected official, I'll say again, I will never lawyer up, and I will never spend your taxpayers' money. As your sheriff, I represent real change, and I want you to vote for me, Mark LaJoy, in early voting and through November 8th. Thank you very much.
Okay, Sheriff Darr.
Again, I appreciate everybody coming tonight and everybody watching at home. You know, this is without a doubt one of the more contentious races I've ever been part of. In the two races that I've ran, this will be my third. I've always told people when as sheriff, and I do take this to heart, I run for the office. I don't run against the individuals. I run for the office. I talk about what I'm going to do to make this a better sheriff's office. And I've done that. I mean, if you go out there and you talk to people out there throughout this community, they're going to tell you that the sheriff's office has a very, very high reputation throughout this community. I tell people, and that's just when you talk to people out throughout this community, you know, I hear some of them talk about strained relationships with other law enforcement agencies, and that's just not true. When we had that incident on Hilton Avenue, we had, about 8 units out there, plus a couple of supervisors. And people, I can tell you this here in the audience and those here watching, that's going to happen regardless if I'm the sheriff or if any of these three are elected sheriffs. Our primary duty is going to be what? The welfare and the safety of the Muscogee County citizens. And we're going to do everything we're supposed to make you guys as safe as you can. And we're going to work with every public safety agency and federal and state agencies to do our part to make this a safer community. I always tell people, go look at what we're doing inside the county jail with these programs. I hear Mr. LaJoy talk about conditional discharge. We got a a program that we have over 125 people on right now that's saving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars each month. We have a number of programs, like I said, at the county jail, from the GED program, our faith-based programs, or fatherhood dorm, or veterans dorm. And I always tell people, and it's true, at no cost to the citizens of Muscogee County, that is cutting the recidivism rate in half compared to the national average, which is what? Saving your taxpayers' dollars. We're doing a lot of things. What they're going to stand here as the one thing they'll try to convince you is what? When it comes to this lawsuit. And I always tell people too, I hope nobody in this room and in this community think that was the number one thing I wanted to do when we came about doing that. At the end of the day, the sheriff's office has to have the money to operate a safe and a sufficient jail. We have to have the money that's required to do a number of the things that is required by us, not only by the state, but the federal government, since we're under a DOJ decree with the county jail. I ask you to follow us on my Facebook page to see what we're doing every day out here in the community and what's going on in the sheriff's office. I ask you to go to my website, Sheriff John Darr, and look at the accomplishments that we've put in place since I've been sheriff. I'm going to then ask you lastly is this, for your support and your vote during this early voting period and in your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Well, this is a contentious race between four passionate people, but despite those passions, I admire the civility and respect that you show one another at the podiums. In today's world, that's not always the case. But we've had Sheriff John Darr, Pam Brown, Donna Tompkins, and Mark LaJoy. And thank you all for offering.
Richard, Pam, Ms. Brown hasn't spoken.
What?
I'm the last one.
Well, if someone would find my glasses for me, maybe it would help me.
I wrote a little something out for if I was your sheriff of Muscogee County. First thing I would do is establish a system of fairness. Treat all my staff and inmates in an appropriate and legal and humane manner. I would also establish a system of consistency, make decisions and provide directions and guidance in a consistent manner. I will stick to a plan based on appropriate laws, policies, and procedures, even when it is easier to take shortcuts. Taking shortcuts or breaking rules simply for convenience communicate that rules should only be followed when someone makes you. Not being consistent damages your credibility and creates a lack of confidence in your system of fairness and honesty. As your sheriff, I trust you. I will keep those in progress, the system of fairness and consistency. And final, a system of vigorous honesty. I cannot profit anything legitimate without vigorous honesty. Without trust, you have nothing. Avoid deception and live the values you support for others. Make your integrity unquestionable. How to deal with any situation or person. Discern the right thing, do it, and say openly why. My office will be open to all citizens of Muscogee County. I promise to have quarterly meetings with any citizen, any leader that would like to come into the sheriff's office to help and guide and advise and opinionate anything that you feel is needed within this community that the sheriff's office could provide. I ask that you consider me as sheriff for Muscogee County, early voting, and November 8th. I am a write-in candidate. If you would just hit the write-in box and type my name, Pam Brown, I will appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate their passion, and I hope they will forgive my confusion. But we have 4 experienced candidates offering for this job, and that's a fortunate thing for us in this community. If you tuned in late to this forum tonight and you want to see it in its entirety, come back later at www.muscogee.allongeorgia.com, and you can watch it over and over again if you like. We'll be back here at this same room and on this same website tomorrow night for a forum on the tax freeze issue. And again, I want to thank Sheriff John Darr, Pam Brown, Donna Tompkins, and Mark LaJoy. And don't forget to vote. You can vote tomorrow, or if you want to wait till November 8th, the polls will be open. But again, thank you for your interest tonight, and have a good evening. If anybody's got my glasses, please.
No, I don't.
I have to keep mine, 'cause I can't do anything without mine.
I ended up taking care of these. These are yours?
It is.
How did I get yours?
You got yours on your head.
I know, but they both was on my, oh, you must have laid them down there when